This episode is brought to you by Roundtable Group, the experts on experts. We've been connecting attorneys with experts for over 25 years. Find out more at roundtablegroup.com.
Welcome to the discussions at the Roundtable. I'm your host, Michelle Loux. My guest today is Louis Fey, an insurance expert with over 40 years of experience in multi-line claim, underwriting, and insurance agency management. And today we're going to talk about what you wish you knew now than when you first started as an expert. What have you learned along the way?
When you do insurance expert work, you run into a lot of fine lines there between what's a legal conclusion and what's not. So I guess if there's one thing that I wish I knew when I first started was where that line is. And I don't think I'm ever going to figure out where that line is completely because it keeps moving and it's very dependent on the judge that's looking at the case. But more and more I've streamlined my thought process on where it's at. And I prevent from being dragged in by opposing counsel into opining on the law. So that's probably the biggest thing.
Well, what prompted you to become an expert witness? Were you approached or was it something that you pursued?
I was called by a plaintiff attorney that I actually retained when I was working at Travelers as a major case director. And I was handling a major fire up in Virginia. And there was a builder's risk carrier involved for one of the buildings. And they denied coverage. So I retained a plaintiff attorney to pursue the builder's risk insurer so they would cover the loss. And I researched it, and he's like one of the premier plaintiff property insurance attorneys. There's not too many of them around, but he's a property specialist. We worked together on that case. And then the minute I left Travelers, he called me up and said, "Hey, can you serve as an expert for me on a case?" And I'm like, "What do I need to do?" He kind of walked me through it. And I said, "Great. Yeah, sure. I'll do it for you." And then I've been doing it ever since.
Yeah.
2007. Yeah.
Do you find you're pulled in as an expert in a wide variety of insurance matters?
Pretty wide variety of different stuff. It's, something new all the time. I've everything from fire to auto, a lot of bad faith, a lot of agency E&O. And then there's like underwriting disputes, coverage disputes, which is interesting. You talk about where the line's drawn. See, I can opine on what the industry intent is behind insurance provisions and how the policy is supposed to be interpreted. But then if the judge applies the law of the jurisdiction, that could be completely different from what the industry standards are. So that's kind of the tightrope right there. But, I've even done some life insurance cases and some group health cases. So it's really all over the place.
Interesting.
What's bankruptcy? I've done a couple of bankruptcy cases. So.
Okay. And then on the bankruptcy, is commercial as well, in addition to personal or residential or whatnot?
Yeah, pretty much everything. The bigger cases are always the commercial cases, I think. But the bankruptcy cases were on the value received by the insurance policy. It was kind of a real niche, but I just got done testifying on a fraud ring in Louisiana. If you Google search New Orleans truck accident fraud ring, you'll find it. And there's estimated 100 accidents and over 300 people claiming injuries as a result of these staged accidents.
Wow.
Very favorable verdict just came in last night. So
I recall reading about a deadly ice storm that hit Texas and it resulted in a 100-car pileup. How do you insure? How do you insure about something maybe hasn't happened before? Yeah. Do you find anything like those in your previous experience? Or?
Well, this little thing called the pandemic brought up a lot of those issues. And I have my own position on coverage for that. I think it is triggered. I think there is contamination is direct physical loss to covered property because it has to be remediated, right? So you can't just leave it if it's problem is you can't see it, so you don't know if it's contaminated or not. But if people are getting sick that are visiting your establishment, then potentially, yeah, you're contaminated. So, but once you trigger coverage, what are the damages? And the other side of the coin is you could remediate the entire business in a day if you wanted to, bring in a crew to fumigate or wipe down everything and disinfect. So what's the loss? It should be fairly limited, and there's a time limitation on business interruption. So, but I've never gotten to that point yet where anybody asks me about what the damages are. It's always about whether coverage is triggered or not. So I just, I stop at that line and say, I wasn't asked to evaluate damages. So
Yeah. Well, speaking of COVID, are you right now in your office building?
Well, yeah, we had a mask mandate where, in the general areas, the common areas, everybody had to wear a mask, but once you're in your office, you can take it off. Now we're only people that are not vaccinated have to wear masks.
Oh, okay.
So I'm double vaccinated plus a booster. So hopefully I'm good to go.
Right. Yes, exactly. And then did you ever have a mentor or someone that helped you early on navigate the waters of how to be an expert witness, or understanding how to communicate with attorneys the most effectively?
I think because I had such a prolonged and long career in directing litigation and mediating cases, that I got pretty good at presenting my case and the facts and defending my position over time. At Travelers, I had a direct report that was like a school teacher and dissected my language and how I wrote up my reports and, redlined it and circled things just like back in school. And so I quickly learned how to write, which I thought I knew before I was there, but apparently not. But that helped me probably more than anything. I think the presentation verbally and testifying on the stands came pretty natural to me, but and I don't get nervous. I don't get scared. So that doesn't bother me. I see a lot of experts come in and they're nervous and shaking, and so it's not for everybody. I mean, everybody's not cut out to be an expert witness. That's for sure. And I know a lot of insurance people are very knowledgeable, but they would never want to get on the stand and testify about anything.
Right.
In fact, they hear the word attorney or litigation, they run. So it's not for everybody, but so yeah, the speaking part of it and the testifying, I enjoy it. So I've never had a problem with that. The writing skills, I think they've progressed a lot over. I've seen some of my early opinions, and then I read some of the stuff I've written lately. It's gotten to the point where, like, if I read something I wrote maybe 6 months ago, I don't really remember it, but when I'm writing, I'm like, oh, that's pretty good. So,
clap yourself on that back right there.
Yeah, right. Oh, I said that. Oh, that's good.
That's perfect. Well, I was also going to wrap it up and ask you, do you do any international cases, or is it mostly just within the US that you handle?
Just the US at this point. Trying to think if I've had anything. I mean, see, I also work for an insurance agency at the same time. So I have two businesses. Fey Consulting is my expert witness part, but on the agency side, we place business worldwide. So I've had, I've been involved in things international, but I don't think I've handled any expert cases. I did handle something for a Japanese firm with business cards that were in, the Japanese writing, lettering, but it was in Texas. So the claim was in Texas. So not really international, but so I guess the answer is no.
Sure. And then during COVID also, is there anything that you've had to change as far as, like, have you done video depositions or had to talk to a judge by video phone call yet?
Yeah, sure. I've done lots of video depositions. Did one mediation by Zoom. No trials by Zoom. And I've talked to a lot of attorneys. They'll do everything they can not to do a Zoom trial because the presentation to the jury and, being in front of the jury and looking them in the eye, that has a big impact on how the case comes out. So I find that like testifying this week in federal court, the plexiglass, the court reporter was in front of me. They had the attorney that was either direct or cross-examining me was over to the side, and I couldn't see them because of the people sitting in front of me. So I had to lean over in a way that prevented me from talking to the jury. So it's kind of changed things a bit, but hopefully we'll get back to normal shortly. The judge asked the jury if it was okay if I removed my mask to testify, and if it was okay for the attorneys that were questioning me to remove their masks, and the jury agreed. So all the testimony was without masks, thank goodness, because it comes out muffled.
Right. Were you asked to show like COVID vaccine card?
The federal court, they make you show your vaccine before you come in the building. So
yeah.
And then they give you a little sticker saying you've been screened. So you got to wear your sticker.
Well, I enjoyed listening. Thank you so much. Is there anything that you wanted to add before we close out?
No, I don't think so. I've enjoyed being an expert, and I'm probably going to start winding it down in a couple of years, but it's definitely interesting.
Yeah. I mean, you never know what you're going to be asked to opine on. So
yeah, there's very odd things pop up, and oh, that's a new one. So
right.
That's the way it goes, right? The only things in life worth knowing are those that you learn after you know it all.
Yes, that's right. That's when it gets good. Well, Lou, I appreciate all your time today, and you enjoy your upcoming holidays.
You too. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to our podcast, Discussions at Roundtable. Our show notes are available on our website, roundtablegroup.com. Subscribe today on Apple Podcast or your favorite listening apps.